Okay, sounds good. So we're recording. I'm going to jump right into this. Thank you guys for bearing with me. Always fun the technical challenges with these. But the first thing that I'm so excited to talk to you guys about is I know that the people on this call you're involved in direct selling, and I've always believed that if a direct selling company would get really, really clear on their brand and their story, and then power their distributors to get really clear on their personal brand and their personal story, you could really create something magical. And I've yet to see a direct sales company do it well. And if you think back to any time you've bought something from someone in direct sales, or any time I've bought something from someone in direct sales, it was rarely because of the product or the service. It was because of the person. And we know intuitively that people buy from people. But so oftentimes in direct sales, we make it all about the product or the service. We focus way too much on the features. And so the first thing that I want you guys to consider tonight is consider the power and what could happen in your business if you as a company first got really clear on your own brand and your own story. And you taught that story to your distributors to where they could articulate your brand story in a really powerful way. And then couple that with, you have distributors that, imagine if they understood the power of their own personal story. And if they knew how to go and connect with people at that human level. And then introduce them to the company story. And that's what we help entrepreneurs do. And that's what I would love to help direct selling companies understand the power of doing. Because the reality is, most companies that I work with are not really powerful storytellers. It's not that they don't have the ability. If they have the ability, it's within them. They just don't tell their story in a really powerful, concise way. And so that's what I want to give you some actionable how-tos. So, to me, storytelling is human selling. That's what it is. Storytelling is not this ethereal, fluffy, mysterious thing. We tell stories so that we can sell and influence, but it's done in a very human way. Gary Vaynerchuk, who David was talking about earlier, he's one of the foremost thought leaders in business in the world today, and he said storytelling is by far the most underrated skill in business. There's no coincidence that the most successful salespeople are also the most effective storytellers. There's no coincidence that companies that usually have the fastest growth, the strongest cultures, the most sustainable business models also are really effective storytellers. So there is, though, this element of brand. And we don't have a lot of time to talk about this tonight. We can maybe save that for another webinar. But your brand should be the thing that drives your story. And I want you to consider for just a minute that there's two elements of brand. And I think this is where a lot of people get confused. There's branding, which is your marketing, your logo, your website, right? It's the external part of your brand. That's branding. But then there's your brand, which is internal. It's more than branding. It's the soul of who you are. It's what you stand for. It's what you're known for. And so the thing I just want to help, and I hope you recognize, is that if you get really, really clear on what your brand stands for, then you start telling a more powerful story. But it starts with this internal brand, as we like to call it. And so tonight I'm going to take you through the 5 forces of storytelling. These are the 5 forces that should be in your story as a company. And what's cool about this is these are also the 5 forces that should be in your distributors' personal stories. And when you can articulate these 5 forces in a really clear, concise way, you give yourself the greatest possible chance of making an impact. So the first force of storytelling that we're going to cover tonight is who you are. Then we're going to talk about what you do, why you do it, how you do it, and then social proof that it actually works. And when you do these 5 things, when you cover these 5 things in your story, you get more clients, stronger culture, and you make a bigger impact. So the first force of storytelling we're going to jump into is who you are. Now, every one of these forces has a very psychological purpose. There's a reason behind why this force is important. So the thing that we're trying to establish in the who you are part of our story is we're trying to talk a little bit about our roots and our identity. We're not trying to tell people what we do. We're not trying to tell them about our product or service. We're simply trying to tell them a little bit about our roots. See, every one of you as a company that's on this call tonight, There's a really cool part of your story about your roots. How you started, why you started, like the early roots of your organization. And what I found is that most companies, their distributors or their employees don't really know the roots behind the story of why the company started. So this is who you are. And what we're trying to establish in the who you are part of the storytelling is human connection and trust. This is where you as a company have an opportunity to show people, hey, we're more than just a product or service. We're more than just a business opportunity. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our roots. This is really powerful to your distributors. If your distributors know how to go out and connect with people at a human level, then people are going to care so much more about the product or the service. They're going to be so much more interested in the business opportunity if there's a little human connection and trust established first. So the other thing about these 5 forces, and I'm going to tell you exactly how I do it. I'm going to show you exactly how I use these 5 forces when I'm meeting someone for the first time or connecting with them. So I tell people, my roots are, I'm a 5th generation native of Arizona. I grew up in a ranching rodeo family. I still compete in rodeos today and the team roping event. As a 5th generation native of Arizona, grew up in a ranching rodeo family, I was always around cowboy storytellers. And so I was fascinated with storytelling ever since I was little. I was fascinated with my roots. My wife is my hero. She's always believed in me. She's the reason why I'm doing the campfire effect. My 4 children, they're my best friends. This is the most important thing in the world to me, is to be a great husband and a great father. So when I'm getting to meet someone for the first time, I never start by telling someone what I do. I never start talking to them about my product or service. I tell them who I am. And I want to know who they are. Because that's where we establish that human connection and trust. And if I do this part really well, then when I get to talking about my product or service, it makes so much more of an impact. So the first force is who you are, and it's the piece that I see most entrepreneurs are neglecting. Now, if I was to ask any of you on this call, do people buy from people or do people buy from companies? I'm guessing the majority of you would say that people buy from people, especially in your industry. Well, I want you to consider this. If people buy from people, then how much of you is in the story of your business? How much of your distributors is in the story of your business, right? We have to let people know who we are. We have to get to know who other people are. Okay, that's the first force of storytelling. This is my great-grandfather, Jack Gable. He had a massive impact in my life. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. Again, just a little about my roots. And when I share this with people, they're fascinated with it. They want to know more about my roots, and it encourages them to tell me about their roots. The second force of storytelling is what you do. Now, this is where I see most businesses get in the most trouble. We have a real tendency as business owners to talk way too much about what we do, especially distributors. We're so excited about our product or service that I call it, we throw up all over people. I would bet that most of you could go on for days about what you do without coming up for breath, without coming up for air, right? Without taking a breath. The problem is when we talk too much about what you do, we really shut people down. So the purpose of what you do is not to convince someone to do business with you. When you're talking to someone about what you do, you're simply trying to build a little interest. You're trying to tell them enough to get them interested in what you do. You're not trying to tell them what you do to close them. You're not trying to tell them what you do to, get them to buy from you. And unfortunately, I think that's how most of us are using this force of storytelling. We're using the what you do to try and get people interested. So there's 4 things. So I want you to consider this. If I was to ask you right now, if I was to walk up to any one of you at a networking event or a conference and I said, hey, tell me what you do, I want you to think about what you would respond with. What would be the first thing that would come out of your mouth if I was to ask you what you do? And I want you to think about your distributors. What would be the first thing that would come out of their mouth if I was to ask them what you do? What I've found is that most people, when they answer this question about when they get asked, hey, what do you do? Most people don't really know how to respond. And if you think about it, it's a question that we should really be able to answer in a very confident way. Because all of us, we're going to be asked this question, what do you do, multiple times a day for the rest of our life. So why not put some real thought behind how to answer this question of what do you do? And here's what I found. I've created a little filter. I want you to think about what you would say to someone if they were to ask you what do you do. So I want you to write it down or have it in your mind, and now I want you to ask yourself, first, is it clear? Is your response to the question, what do you do, is it really clear? Second, is it succinct? Third, is it thought-provoking? Is it interesting enough to where I would say, hey, tell me more about that, or how do you do that? Okay? And most importantly, does it deliver a benefit? Here's what you don't want to say. If someone asks you, what do? You don't want to say, I do direct sales. Or you don't want to say, I'm with a skincare company. Or I'm with a supplement company. Because responses like that, they're not thought-provoking. It's not interesting enough for someone to say, well, tell me more about that. How do you do that? But most importantly, what's the benefit? When someone asks you, what do you do? Tell them the benefit you provide to people. So when people used to ask me what I did, I used to tell them we teach entrepreneurs how to become rock star storytellers. The problem with that response is people don't even know what a rock star storyteller is. They don't know what the benefit of being a rock star storyteller is. And here's what I found. We tend to use language that is really familiar with us, but that our prospective clients or customers don't really understand. So I started looking at my response of, we teach people how to become rock star storytellers. And then I asked myself, okay, well, but what does that do for people? What does being a rock star storyteller really do? And I was like, well, if you're a rock star storyteller, you're going to get more clients, build a stronger culture, and you're going to make a bigger impact. Those are the benefits. And so now when someone says, hey, what do you do? I say, we teach entrepreneurs and their teams how to tell their story in a powerful way so they can get more clients, build a stronger culture, and make a bigger impact. I'm very clear on the benefits. And usually when I say that, an entrepreneur or business owner will say, well, how do you do that? How do you help people get more clients or build a stronger culture? Like, tell me more about that, right? It's thought-provoking, and it's very specific on delivering a benefit. So when someone asks you, what do? You've got to tell them what you do in a way that's clear, it's succinct, it's thought-provoking, and most importantly, tell them the benefit of what you do. Okay, so then next, why do you do it? So if you think about what we've done so far is we've told them who we are, built some human connection and trust. Now we've told them what we do, so now they're interested. But now tell them why you do it. This is where they get a little bit of inspiration, and this is where you start to establish some credibility with them. And here's what I mean by when you tell them why you do it, it's not just your passion. It's not just because it's your purpose. What you want to share with them is, what's the backstory? What I've realized as entrepreneurs is we have a really bad habit of starting our story at the present day. So for most of us, if someone came up to you and said, hey, tell me what you do and why you do it, you would say, well, okay, let me tell you about my really awesome company and all the cool things we're doing. We start at the present day and go forward. What most people really want to know, they want to know a little bit, though, what's the backstory? Like, what happened in your life to even cause you to create this company? Because we live in a world today where people are inundated with information. People are with the information. And what they're looking for is a little bit of context. So if you tell people why you do it, like the problems and the challenges that you were seeing out there in the world, and you thought, you know what, I could do something about this. There's a need out there in the marketplace, and I could fill that need. And so here's what I started doing, and I started researching, and I started testing things. That's the backstory. And that's what gives people context, like, oh, okay, this totally makes sense as to why you would do this business, right? So again, why do I do the campfire effect? Well, I had done so many different things. I'd done direct sales, I'd done commercial real estate, I had sold insurance, I'd sold supplements. I tried everything. And I was always a really good salesperson. I was always a really, high performer. But the one thing that I saw over and over and over again, whether it was direct sales or commercial real estate or insurance or supplement sales, I saw entrepreneurs who were so much more powerful than the story they would tell. I would talk to an entrepreneur, for example, that was in direct sales, and they would tell me what they did, and I would listen to them explain to me what they did, And then I would really start digging in and asking them, okay, well, tell me about like, where are you from? Tell me a little about your roots. Tell me how you even got into this industry. Tell me why you got into this industry. Then they would tell me this really rich, awesome story. And I would be really blunt with them. I would say, okay, the story you originally told me when we first started talking, it was pretty crappy. Like, that story sucked. And then when I started asking you questions and started causing you to dig in a little bit, you told me this really awesome story. Why didn't you tell me that story first? And I just found over and over and over again, most entrepreneurs didn't know how to tell that story. And so I kept seeing entrepreneurs, they were so much more powerful than the stories they would tell people. Or the product or service they had was so much more incredible than how they would explain it. And so I was like, I got to do something about this. I've got to teach this. I've got to teach people how to become more powerful storytellers. So that's why I do this. So when I tell people that story and give them, now they have context. They're like, okay, Chris didn't just wake up one day and create the campfire effect. There was a real reason behind why he created it. Okay, so the next part is, how do you do it? Now, if I was to ask any of you on this call, do you have a process that you take people through? All of you would say, well, yeah, of course we have a process we take people through. That's how we get, that's how we run our business. And if I was to ask you, okay, do you believe that process is unique? Do you believe that how you add value to the marketplace or how you have created your product or service, do you believe it's unique? Again, I would hope that most of you would say yes. That's why we started our business, is because we believed that we had something unique to offer the marketplace. This is the piece that I see most entrepreneurs missing the biggest opportunity in. What most people really want to know is, most people don't really want to know what we do. Again, they want to know enough about what we do to get interested, but what they really, really want to know is, how do you do it? Because if you can explain to someone how you do it, that's where they have confidence to do business with you. Because if you can tell them how you do it, then in their minds, they believe you have a process, and that process is how you get results for them. When people are thinking about buying our product or service, or when people are thinking about doing business with us, what they really want to know is this going to work for me? Is this going to get a result for me? And the way that you can tell them it's going to get a result for them is tell them exactly how you do your business. Tell them how you get the results for them. So a little tip that I'll give you is, I want you to think about your process. And I want you to think about how unique it is. And I want you to think about how you get results for your clients, your customers. And now I want you to consider, what would happen if you actually branded that process? What would happen if you gave that process a name, a logo, you trademarked it? See, most of us have branded our company. We have a name for our company. And we try to do the best job we can of branding our company and telling the story of our company. But very few entrepreneurs ever think to brand the actual process inside the company that makes them unique. This is where I saw the biggest growth in my company, was when I created the campfire effect. See, the campfire effect isn't the name of my company, it's our methodology. It's our process, it's how we do it. So now when I talk to someone and someone says, okay, that's really cool, like what you do, well, how do you do it? Like, how would we work together? Now I can say, well, we have a proprietary methodology called the campfire effect. And the campfire effect is a 3-part framework. And then when they go and they see that my process is trademarked, it's got its own name, it's got its own brand, it's got its own logo. And there's 3 pillars. There's root force, true influence, and brand loyalty. What it implies to people is like, wow, this isn't the first time Chris has done this. Like, he's thought through this enough to actually brand his process. He's thought through this enough to actually create a name for it. And he can articulate exactly how he gets results for his clients. He can articulate exactly how he's going to move us through this process. So I want you to think about this idea of, how do you do it? And can you articulate? And most importantly, can your distributors articulate the how? What I've found is that a lot of direct sales companies have armed their distributors to the hilt with information about what they do, the product, the service. But they've given them very little information about how to actually explain how they do it. And then the 5th and final force is social proof. This is where they believe that you're the one. Now, I know you've got to be careful. Every industry is different with direct sales, and you've got to be careful about claims and things with your products. But the reality is, what most people want to know more than anything is, have you ever done this with someone like me? And what was the result? And what's interesting is social proof is used on us all the time. I would be willing to bet that most of you on this call, if you're thinking about going to a restaurant, you look at the reviews. If you're thinking about buying a book online, you look at the reviews. And you make decisions to buy or not buy based on those reviews. And those reviews are social proof. So social proof is used on us all the time. But unfortunately, what I find is that a lot of business owners aren't leveraging their own social proof. Every one of you on this call has gotten amazing success stories. You've gotten results for real people. And I call it liquid gold because we let it run through our fingers and down the drain. You've got to use social proof. You've got to be able to tell people, hey, here's who we are. So we build that human connection and trust. Then you tell them what you do, so they build a little interest. Now you tell them why you do it, so they have some credibility and context. Then you tell them exactly how you do it through your process. Now they have confidence. And then you tell them all of that's true because you're going to tell them of a time where you've actually done it for someone and the result you got for them. And this is where they go from confidence to like, okay, you're the one. Like, I want to do business with you. I did this today. I had a lady that I had a consultation with. She is a coach. She coaches people with diabetes. I listened. I asked a lot of questions. I got to know her. Then when she started asking me about, tell me about the campfire effect, I just went right down the line through the 5 forces. I told her who I was. I told her how who I was had a connection to what I did. Then I told her why I did it. Then I told her about my process, the campfire effect, and how I take entrepreneurs through it. And then I told her, I said, you know what, Leslie? You remind me a lot of a client that we recently worked with named Shauna. Do you mind if I tell you what we did for Shauna and how we took her through the campfire effect and the result we got for her? And Leslie was like, sure. Yeah, of course. I would love to hear that story. So I told her about what we did for Shauna, and she goes, that's exactly what I need. Perfect. First time ever talking to her, took her through the 5 forces, got to know her. She ran her credit card. She's coming out next week for a 1-day workshop, flying here for a one-day workshop from Florida. Like these 5 forces really work. We just got to be intentional. And what's cool about the 5 forces is if you work at it and practice it, you can get to the point where you can get through the entire 5 forces of your story in like 5 to 8 minutes. And it'd be really, really clear. Imagine the power of your distributors being able to do this. So help your distributors develop their personal story. Helps them see how their personal story connects to the company story. So when you're looking at social proof, when you're looking at how to develop and how to write maybe some of these success stories that you guys have gotten for people, don't just talk about the good that came from them working with you. Don't just focus on the positive. Talk about what they were struggling with first, then talk about how your process helps them overcome that struggle. Because people can relate to struggle more than anything. And then, so here's some social proof of a client. I just gave you an example of one, so I won't go through this. But basically, like, here's a company called Connect. And if I was working with someone that I felt fit this, then I would say, hey, you know what? You remind me a lot of a client we recently helped called, named Connect. Let me tell you about what Connect was struggling with. And let me tell you about how taking them through our process, what we were able to do for them. Now, there is a 6th force. I call it the 5 forces of storytelling, but there's actually a 6th force, and it's kind of a secret force. And the force is that if you want to be a great storyteller, and if you want to get really good at the 5 forces of storytelling, you've got to learn to be a great listener. And in order to be a great listener, you have to know how to ask questions. So the thing I'm going to end with, and I'll leave you guys with this, and the final tip is, if you want to be a great storyteller, you've got to be a great listener. And if you want to be a great listener, you've got to ask great questions. So then the question is, well, how do we know what questions to ask? Here's what's really cool about the 5 forces of storytelling. The same 5 forces that you use to tell your story are also the same 5 forces that you use to ask questions from other people to get them to tell you their story. So today when I was on that phone call with Leslie, I didn't start by telling my story first. I started by asking her about her story, which is what I always try to do. And I just used the 5 forces. So the first questions I asked her was, hey, Leslie, tell me a little about you. Where are you from? What do you do for fun? Tell me about your family. I was asking her questions about who she was, the first force of storytelling. Then I said, okay, so tell me, like, how did life lead you here? How did you get to the point of what you do today? Then I got her to start talking to me about what she does, which is the second force of storytelling. What do you do? Then I said, well, okay, so why do you do it? Like, why do you do this? What caused you to want to become a diabetic coach? Why? So then I got her to start talking to me about her why, the third force. And then I said, okay, so tell me about your process. Like, how do you get results for your clients? How do you actually do it? So that's the fourth force. I got her to tell me about her process, how she does it. And then the fifth force, I said, so Leslie, tell me about a client you've recently helped. Like, tell me about a success story. So what I do for my prospective clients or customers, and your distributors could do this, and they would be so powerful. They would kill it. They would crush it. Is I help people tell me their story without them even knowing it. I help them be a great storyteller because there's a magic that happens. When I get people to open up and tell me their story, they trust me because they're sharing with me. And the more I can get them to open up and share with me, the more they trust me. They feel a connection to me, and all I'm doing is asking great questions and listening. So before I ever go into my 5 forces of storytelling, I've built an incredible trust and a connection with them. In most situations, I really believe they're already prepared to buy from me before I've even gotten to my 5 forces, just because I've done such a great job of listening, and they feel so connected. And then at that point, then I simply go through my 5 forces pretty succinctly. And here's what's interesting in the social proof piece of my story. If you caught what I said earlier, I said, Leslie, you remind me a lot of a client I recently helped. The only way I know how to say that is because I've actually listened to her story first. Because I listened to her story first, I was able to say, you know what, you remind me a lot of a client I recently helped. I can't relate that if I haven't listened to her story first. So if as a company, a direct sales company, you got really clear on your 5 forces, and then you encourage your distributors to do the same, so they have the confidence, they know what to say, and they know how to say it in a powerful way, and then you taught them the power of asking great questions and listening first. If your distributors know how to go out and connect with people at a human level, then introduce the story, you will see a massive increase in the number of conversions and people coming on board. And so I wanted to keep it succinct and brief, David, and open it up, for any questions. But that's what I wanted to share with you, and that's what I cover in the 5 forces, and then also the 6th force of really being a great listener and asking great questions. So, in the spirit of questions, if anyone has any questions, they want to ask over audio or chat in, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Yeah, if you're on mute, you can unmute yourself. You're not muted from this end, and take advantage of this opportunity to ask Chris some questions about your own business, your own context.
Can you give an example of a nutritional company with product? What areas of the business would you imagine could be branded? Perfect. Okay, so a nutritional company, perfect example. The first thing that I would want to know is, what's the backstory? Like, most nutritional companies started because of some really awesome backstory. Like, either something happened to someone, a family member, and as a result, you saw that there was, backstory of the company or product. Great question. To me, I'm most interested first and foremost in the backstory of the company, because it's the company that develops the product, I'm assuming. Whichever came first is what I'm most interested in, the backstory, because I'm assuming that the company was created and then the product, or maybe it was the product and then the company, but regardless, I want there to be some context as to why this company even exists. Because in direct sales, there's a nutritional company for every day of the month, right? So all things being equal, if I have 2 or 3 different nutritional companies trying to recruit me to come be a distributor, or if I have 2 or 3 different nutritional companies trying to get me to buy their product, which is a reality for me, I would say on a monthly basis, I have at least 1 to 2 nutritional companies in the direct sales industry trying to get me to either buy their product or become a distributor, right? All things being equal, I'm going to join the company or buy the product from 2 factors. First and foremost, I'm going to buy from the person I have the strongest connection with, the distributor that personally connects with me the strongest. And 2, I'm going to buy from the company that has the strongest backstory that gives me context as to why the company even exists. Okay? So there's a real opportunity to paint the picture around the backstory of the company or the product. Second thing is, what could you brand? What areas of a business would you imagine could be branded? Well, first and foremost, I'm assuming that you believe, Doug, that how you create your product or service, or sorry, not your service, how you create your product, how you formulate the product, right? The science behind your nutritional product. I'm assuming that there's some uniqueness there. There's some proprietary, IP. Well, brand that process. That should be a story within the story. Like when your distributors show up to talk to people, they should be able to say, now, there's a lot of nutritional companies out there, but let me tell you what makes ours unique. Let me tell you about the proprietary process that we go through to formulate our products. And that proprietary process is called X, right? It's got its own name, its own logo, it's trademarked. Now, this is also assuming, Doug, that imagine a distributor of yours that could show up to an appointment, ask really great questions, connect with someone at a human level. Then imagine that distributor being able to tell their personal story. And their personal story is talking all about why they decided to come be part of your company, right? Their own roots, their own path, their own journey that led them to this amazing company. So now they transition to your company. Now they're telling the backstory of this company and the products. And they say, you know what? Let me tell you exactly how we get results. Let me tell you how we help people. It's your proprietary process called X. So I could see you branding the process, branding the steps within that process. Because again, the other thing is, you have to think about, people need to have context not just to why your company exists, but you should also give people context as to why the product exists. And if you have a branded process that gives context to the product, it's an amazing thing. This is something that we help a lot of like nutritionists and personal trainers and dermatologists with, is they've been selling product, but most people don't really have a context as to why the product. But when the product is branded within the context of a bigger brand, a branded process, it makes more sense to people. What about steps for distributors to build their own backstory for participating in company with the product? Okay, great. If I'm an owner of a direct sales company, I really want to help my distributors to be able to confidently tell the story of why their life and how their life led them to this company. Every one of your distributors is with your company for a reason. And for most people, it's a really awesome purpose-driven reason. So the reality is they have a really rich backstory as to why they're a distributor with your company and what led them to be there. The problem is they're not telling that story. So if they're not giving people context as to why and how their life led them to be part of your company, like for example, a nutritional company, most distributors in nutritional companies are distributors because they had an amazing experience with the product or service. And the reason they had that amazing experience with the product or service was because of something that happened in their life. That's where all the rich connection takes place, is that story, the distributor's personal connection to the brand. And unfortunately, most distributors are never telling that story. They have this really awesome backstory, and yet they show up and they throw up all over people about the opportunity. They throw up all over people about the product or service without giving them any context. And so I would want my distributors to be able to confidently tell the story of why and how their life led them to this company and their own experience with the product or the company. So now people have context. They're not just talking to another distributor that's trying to pitch them a business opportunity. They're talking to a real person that has a real story and a real experience with your product or service in your company. That's a great question, Scott. Any other questions, comments, thoughts you guys want to share? I've got a couple more minutes. I'm happy to take any other.
Chris, you mentioned something about social proof. I notice on your websites you have some marvelous video testimonials from people who have benefited from your services. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of gathering those? Not you said it yourself, but the customer says it.
Oh yeah, it's everything. Like our customers are always more credible than we are, always, because they're real people that our prospective clients or customers can relate with. So it's one thing for me to go on my website and talk about how great the campfire effect is, but it's so much more powerful when it's your own customers. And what I found is most people are willing to shoot a video testimonial. We're just not using, you know. So David just asked, can you use SoundCloud or YouTube to build a library of witnesses? Absolutely, absolutely. Like they can be written, audio, visual. Now I will say that the goal is to get visual. Like if you can get video testimonials, there is nothing more powerful. And I've had so many clients that have said the reason we ultimately made the decision to move forward, is because of the testimonials. Like we felt really good, we felt really confident, but the thing that really kind of gave us the ultimate confidence to move forward and say yes, we're going to write a check, was because of the social proof. There's nothing more valuable. There's nothing people want to know more than, have you done this for someone like me, and what was the result? Well, yeah, I have, and I'll prove it to you by letting them tell you. I don't need to tell you. And what I found is that the reason most people aren't gathering social proof is they're just not asking for it. Like imagine how powerful it would be if as a company, imagine how powerful it'd be as a company that if you armed your distributors with the knowledge of, okay, you guys are distributors, and when you go out and try to recruit or sell product, these are the top 3 to 5 challenges that most people are going to have around our product or service. Okay, so here's the 3 to 5 biggest categories of challenge, right? What if you created one customer video testimonial for each of those top 3 to 5 challenges, at least in the beginning, and you armed your so now every time your distributor is out meeting with someone and they come against a challenge, they know exactly what success story to share with them because it's been categorized that way. Teresa, is there such a thing as too little social proof? What if I only have 2 or 3 reviews? Absolutely not, Teresa. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, you know what? We just started gathering some customer testimonials, and I want to tell you about. I want to talk to you. You know, here they are on the website. Or Teresa, when I first started, when I first started the Campfire Effect, I went out and begged people to let me, take them through a workshop for free because I wanted social proof. I was more concerned about the social proof than what they would pay me. So I got my first social proof. It was the only one I had for a while. So it's the one I used in every single appointment. Every single appointment I was in, I was like, oh, you know what? Let me tell you about the last customer that we helped. Let me tell you about our most recent client. Right? I leveraged the heck out of that, one testimonial, that social proof. So do the same. If you have 2 or 3 reviews, get those 2 or 3 reviews up on your website for now, because you're going to have more. Get those 2 or 3 reviews in your social. Start using them. Jeff brought up a great point. He says we have both distributors, sales reps, and customers to get social proof from. Absolutely. The unique opportunity you have in direct sales is you have opportunities to get social proof from customers around the product or service, but you also have an opportunity to get social proof from your distributors and your reps about how your company's changed their life, how they have more freedom now financially. They have more time freedom. So you've got unlimited opportunities to get social proof in areas of customers and, your actual distributors and sales reps. Any other thoughts, comments, questions? Also, I'm going to give you guys, if you guys ever want to reach out to me directly, I'm going to type in here an email, and then I'm also going to type in here some just free resources we've created that you guys are welcome to. Okay, someone had a question. Is there such thing, or do you have a PDF checklist or steps? Okay, great question. That's some of that is in the campfireeffect.com/growth, the website I just shared. The checklist, and the thing I would encourage you to do, Scott, is if you have questions around how to set up a group, or go to my website, the campfireeffect.com/client. What we structured the.
Chris, you cut out there for the last 15 seconds. Could you give that address again, please?
Yeah, the campfireeffect.com, and when you get on our website, go to the Clients tab. We've really coached our clients, and you'll be able to see when you go on there, we've really coached them on how to talk about the struggle or the challenge they were having, and then the benefit they received as a result of working with us. Oh, sorry, is there a PDF of sorts that could be shared with the attendees? David, I don't know how we would share the PDF with the attendees, but you can download those directly on the website. So David, if you want to share those, if you want to email that out afterwards, I'd be more than happy for you to send out anything on the growth page, the campfireeffect.com/growth, any of that you wanted to share.
Okay.
Email out as a PDF, more than obviously welcome to do that.
Thank you. I will do that. Yeah, I'm on the site now. There's some nice content on here that I think everyone will benefit from. There is, guys, I don't know if it's a summary, Chris, but you've got the 5 stages of brand loyalty. Is that something different?
Yeah, so the brand loyalty is, once we have people as our clients or customers, how do we foster an intentional brand experience so that they want to stay customers? Because oftentimes as businesses, we focus a little too much on our product or service, and sometimes not enough on the experience we're providing. And so the 5 stages of brand loyalty is all about delivering that experience as well as the product or the service.
Awesome. I think that's a real opportunity for all of us in business to focus on. As things have become more automated, we're really missing out on that connection with the customer.
Yeah. So the 5 stages of brand loyalty, and then we've got another really good guide on there about how to use the 5 forces of storytelling specifically at networking events. And that would be really powerful for your distributors, right? How do they, when they show up to a networking event or a conference, how do they show up in a really, really confident way and actually get business from networking events and conferences?
Yes, I totally agree, Jeff. If we can do such a good job of solving our customers' problems and making their lives better, that they become advocates for us, that's the hardest part. If I say it, it's a lie. If you say it, it's the truth. Or if a customer says it, it's the truth. So I think that we've covered a lot of ground tonight. We've had some awesome comments and feedback. Before we let Chris go, is there anything else that we need to answer or address for your specific company? All right, great. Chris, thank you so much. I have recorded this, and I'll post it probably tomorrow. It's got to process for a little bit, and then I'll get it up as soon as possible. If you have a chance, definitely go to Chris's website, the campfireeffect.com/growth. That's where you'll find the freebies that Chris mentioned. And to learn more about what Easy Party Plan does, and to hear or to read about our story of struggle and overcoming that struggle and why we do what we do, we'll see you at easypartyplan.com. Everybody have a great night tonight. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Comments have been awesome. And Chris, thank you again so much. Good night, everybody.
Good night. I was muted. I apologize. Enjoyed it, man. That was great. Thanks.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, everyone.